Houston, Fanatics and BGS have a big bloody problem when it comes to some of these backdoor cards we've spoken about in the last 72 hours. Yes, that's right. As you can see by the title, an athlete has come out and confirmed that an auto on one of these backdoor cards is not in fact theirs. That is a fake auto. This is a pretty concerning thing and once again highlights some of the issues with these businesses within our hobby. I'm going to talk to each of those things as well as some of the facts, so please just bear with me. Now, as I've talked to in the past, you've got a pretty interesting situation here. We spoke about those, cards in question and how it looked as though they were backdoored out of Fanatics or Topps, I should say, through the authentication process, right? When they're watching the people, when I say people, the athletes sign the cards. Now, we spoke about in the last video how it looks like college students were involved, contractors were involved, and it looks like, a row of cards were stolen. Mario Alejandro on Twitter, who's pretty big in the content creation space from a writing perspective and has been for quite some time, basically come out and said a few things. He says, Angels prospect and fellow Venezuelan Nelson Rada, who's the individual we spoke to in the video from 2 days ago, right? When we questioned the authenticity of the auto because it didn't match, proven to be correct autos. He said, Nelson Rada has confirmed that his 2023 Topps Bowman Chrome cards have been forged by someone who stole the cards. That hasn't stopped BGS from grading it. BGS have graded it as authentic. I'll get to my thoughts on that in a sec. We'll get a comment, of Topps Fanatics on why baseball cards are easily being stolen and then basically placed on the secondary market, allowing collectors to be scammed. Now, this is pretty interesting because I believe it is him who contacted Nelson Rada directly. As you can see here, this DM pretty clearly shows these photos. They basically sent two lots. They said, okay, what's happening here? He's basically saying, these are good. I believe that means bad or fake. Again, I don't speak Spanish. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But he's basically come out and said those autos don't make sense, including this one here. Now, this one here is the exact one that we showed 2 days ago around the authenticity questions. And this is really concerning. Now, some of you will sit back and say, well, what the heck is BGS doing authenticating this? You guys need to understand when they're grading cards, they're not looking at the auto, they're not looking at the patch. That's their, sort of weaseling out of, providing a guarantee of those services. The only things they're looking at are the edges, the corners, and the surface, right? It is not their fault in this specific instance because it's not something they check or provide a guarantee over, okay? BGS don't provide a guarantee in the first place over their grade, but you can't really be blaming BGS for this. Now, what you should be blaming BGS for is if they don't, decertify this card or they don't investigate further, because given that we've got, proof now from this athlete that he did not in fact sign this card, BGS should be doing whatever they can to identify, one, where this card came from, and two, how many other cards are impacted. And the way they do that is by getting in contact with the likes of Topps and Fanatics. This is a pretty alarming situation, and again goes to some of the things we spoke about in the last two videos. So many people were quick to dismiss the fact that these cards were stolen or these cards could be replaced, or how do we know if the autos are fake or not? Well, now we've got a pretty clear indication here that they are in fact stolen and they are in fact, fake signatures. Now, could the counterpoint be, well, these cards were in fact, just, signed by someone else other than the athlete themselves during the signing session? Sure. But given the fact that these surfaced, before the product was even released, I think it's more safe to say, okay, these cards were signed by someone else other than the athlete, and, a row box of cards was stolen or somehow misplaced and somebody got their hands on them when the signing sessions did take place. And one thing I want to clarify as well, I won't bring this up on screen, but I'll talk to it. Somebody in the last video basically said, Daniel, I've hit a Rada in a box. You've basically said, all the lower numbers below, 299 haven't been hit. I've hit one, you're wrong. Somebody has reached out and basically said they hit something out of the mega box, not from that, set of cards. The ones in question are the ones we've shown on screen in the past. So whilst you have hit a lower numbered card, the one you're talking about is from a completely different distribution of cards themselves. So again, it's a pretty interesting situation. I'm having some contact with a few people around trying to get some insight as to where these cards came from on eBay, because there are a number of one feedback accounts selling this kind of thing, and on Facebook groups as well, as again I did talk to in Sports Card Radio's live today. The problem is these accounts have since been deleted or they've been created with fictitious names or things like that. So this is again pretty alarming. And one of the things I talked to that Ryan and Colin agreed with from a Sports Card Radio perspective was how Topps had come out and basically not said a peep. You've now got an instance where a third-party grader is also impacted by these cards that look like they were backdoored. What are they going to do, right? And one of the things I talk to in this space a lot is these businesses need to just, shut up, deal with the consequences and say, guys, we stuffed up. This is what we did to try and fix it, or we weren't aware of this. Thanks for raising it, right? That's the next step from them. That's what they need to be doing in this instance, because if once again had an instance here where they've essentially let themselves down and then done something like this, it's just freaking crazy to me. So let me know your thoughts. I just thought it was pretty funny that this sort of popped off, 20 minutes after jumping on Sports Card Radio's live, as you can see over here, where we talked about, more information on this. I think even one of the questions from Ryan was, do we know where these autos came from? I said at the time, we think they're fake, but it's hard to get confirmation. 20 minutes later, we get that confirmation that these cards in question were signed by somebody else. Now, I really hope the person who has stolen these, or at least backdoored them, was dumb enough to submit to BGS under their own name, because I'd like for them to get caught, right? This is not the kind of thing you want. I don't like seeing people get deceived or taken advantage of, irrespective of whether or not Fanatics should have done a better job when it comes to hiring people or selecting people, right? If you're taking on some kind of work, you need to do your best to do the right thing. And then now that you're playing these kinds of games and fake signing cards and then trying to offload them to some poor unsuspecting customer is really poor. And I also want to make sure that I'm not discounting the fact of the error from Topps and Fanatics here, okay? Because the fact that these products were still released, and we might also have the same issues in Topps Chrome because it only released, about 10 days ago. The fact they've allowed those products to release and not mention anything, even though this information has been known since April. When I say information, I mean the cards known to have been stolen, right? Or known to have somehow got out into the open market. The fact they've not said anything is incredibly disingenuous. And I would be shocked if they weren't aware that these were out there in the market prior to the release of this product. They would have known, right? And they've either ignored it completely and didn't really care, or, replaced the cards in the product, which again is a bad thing, as Ryan did talk to today on the live, because you've now duplicated the number of hits that are potentially out there. I think we might end up in a position where all the graders, PSA, SGC, BGS, are going to turn around and say, we're not grading these cards, we're not grading these parallels, which has some pretty big ramifications. Now, if that's not the outcome we get from these graders, and that's not a message we get from the manufacturer, i.e. Topps Fanatics, it does not give me a whole lot of confidence for where the hobby is going to head under them moving forward, because this is a big bloody problem. Like, I don't think you guys that are still saying it's not that big of a deal are truly understanding how big of a problem this is. Because now you might get somebody out there to buy this card because maybe my channel doesn't get picked up when it comes to talking about this. Maybe Mario on Twitter doesn't get picked up for talking about this. We're fortunate enough now that Sports Card Radio are talking about it, because that might bring the awareness. But if that knowledge doesn't get out there, or somebody's already paid big dollars for these kinds of cards, they're almost screwed. And that kind of thing is such a shit thing. This kind of thing makes me angry. The hobby needs to be better. These businesses need to be better. Like, this is not okay. I talked again in the Sports Card Radio Live about businesses needing to uplift their risk appetite. 10 years ago, I've talked to this so many times. 10 years ago, when they were, developing cards and producing cards and grading cards, they had a risk appetite that matched the amount of money that you were paying for the product. You're now paying 10, 20, 30, 40 times more for the same freaking thing, and they've maintained the same level of risk appetite, which means now you've got big incentive for people to go to signing sessions and steal the cards, because they get paid more for stealing the cards than they would for the hourly rate or getting rehired again. Like, this thing is just ridiculous, and I think there's a lot more out there than what people are actually aware of. So again, I just want to clarify a few things. The person in the last video that left a comment and said their RADA was hit, it's lower numbered, so why is my story then accurate? Because they've basically said it's wrong. I'll read this comment from this person. That comment I was referencing, they hit a mega box auto, which is a different card. In the case of RADA, my theory is a one-row box was stolen and just happened to be the one that had the Chrome first autos, blues, and below that threshold, right? The blue tier and then down. Based on how I've seen Topps distribute the cards before auto, I'd guess the mega box autos were in a different one-row box, which again is entirely possible, right? It's clear that not every single parallel was stolen. This person has shared a bunch more information, so hopefully I can get some more and come back to you guys with another update. I just wanted to share this with you all because we've got an athlete confirmed to not be his auto. It's now graded by BGS. What the heck is Topps and Fanatics doing? What the heck is BGS got to do moving forward? This is a watch this space kind of thing, and it's a much bigger problem than people are going to make it out to be. They're going to try and sweep it away, but this is a big bloody problem. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments down below. Let me know if I missed anything, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.